Dad emptied Grandma's $22,000 savings for a luxury Maldives trip. But at the gate, the attendant said, "There's no ticket for you or your grandson." Dad didn't flinch. He just replied, "We all voted. You two stay behind." I stayed with Grandma, and we made one quiet move. 3 weeks later, they returned laughing, until Grandma whispered, "Go check the garage." Then I heard Dad's voice crack. It was supposed to be our first Christmas in the sun. Palm trees instead of pine. Turquoise water instead of icy sidewalks. My dad pitched the idea like it was some once-in-a-lifetime family bonding experience. A healing escape after a rough year. What he really meant was, "Grandma, it's time to open that savings account." And she did. Quietly. No fuss. Just a soft nod and a trip to the bank where she'd been depositing small bits of her pension for nearly a decade. $22,000. Gone in one swipe. Booked for a luxury Maldives holiday. Full package, business class, private villas, the works. He told me I'd be in charge of logistics. "You're good with apps and bookings," he said. I mapped out itineraries, packed confirmation emails, coordinated airport pickups. But something kept gnawing at me. A thread I couldn't quite pull. In every conversation, every group chat, every dinner discussion, no one mentioned me. Or Grandma. Ever. It was always, "We'll need 4 snorkel sets. Should we book a couple's massage? Can someone pack extra chargers for our devices?" When I asked Dad about our tickets, he waved it off. "Of course you're coming. Didn't you see the confirmation email?" No, I hadn't. But I didn't want to insult him by digging. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. That this would finally be a Christmas where Grandma wasn't sitting alone in her recliner while the rest of us posted matching pajama photos from her living room. I should have trusted my gut. We arrived at the airport with hours to spare. Luggage stacked like a royal procession. My sister wore a white floppy hat and Gucci sunglasses like we were already on the sand. My dad barked orders at a skycap while sipping his latte. Mom scrolled Instagram, already posting, "Family escape begins." We got in line for check-in. The clerk took passports, clicked her keyboard a few times, then frowned. "Sir," she said carefully, "I'm not seeing confirmed tickets for these two. Just the other 4 names." Dad didn't even pretend to be surprised. He didn't ask to check again, didn't react. Just turned to us, smiled faintly, and said the words I'll never forget. "We all voted. You two stay behind." Grandma blinked. "Voted?" she asked, voice barely audible. My sister chuckled. "You wouldn't enjoy the heat anyway, Grandma." They moved forward like nothing had happened. No scene. No shame. They scanned their tickets, posted boomerangs from the business lounge, captioned with hashtag grateful, hashtag blessed, hashtag Maldives vibes. And we just stood there. Me, clutching our overnight bags. Her, clutching her purse like it was all she had left. No one looked back. No one said goodbye. The silence at gate 14 was louder than any scream. I glanced at the departure board. Mail, boarding final call. I wanted to shout, to rip their tropical dreams to pieces. But instead, I turned to Grandma. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Shoulders slumped. Lip trembling. The woman who once raised 3 kids through 2 jobs and a broken hip. Abandoned like unwanted luggage. I took her hand, and I said, loud enough for the clerk to hear, "Grandma, we're going home. But not just home. We've got work to do." You ever watch someone become invisible in slow motion? That was Grandma last year. She was still at every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday call, even if no one picked up. But somewhere along the way, they just stopped seeing her. God, Mom, not this again. My aunt would snap in the family group chat whenever Grandma asked what time dinner was. Just Google it. My dad once said when she asked about my cousin's graduation date. When she spoke, people talked over her. When she gifted something, no one thanked her. When she stayed silent, which was most of the time, no one noticed at all. But I noticed. Every Wednesday, I drove across town to her apartment. We'd eat split-pea soup, watch reruns of Jeopardy, and she'd pretend to be fine. But the signs were there. She had started cutting open toothpaste tubes to scrape the last of it out. She tore dryer sheets in half to make them last longer. She turned off the heater unless I was visiting, bundled in 3 sweaters like it was a game. And yet, she always had something for someone else. A new jacket for my sister's baby. A book for my cousin's exam. A $1,200 laptop, paid in full, for my nephew's college prep, even though he mostly played Minecraft. "Grandma," I asked her once, "how are you affording all this?" She smiled, tapped the side of her nose. "I'm just smart," she said, "and I don't need much." I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Then one afternoon in late October, I saw it. I was helping her order groceries online, and her banking app was still open. I glanced. Froze. A transfer, $22,000, out of a shared savings account I didn't even realize she still had. One I'd helped her open when I was 16, back when I thought joint account just meant she trusted me. Grandma. I turned the screen to her. She didn't flinch. It's for the trip, she said softly. Your dad said it was expensive, and well, maybe this is the last time we're all together. She looked up at me. Wouldn't that be nice? My stomach twisted. I wanted to say no. To tell her that if they really wanted her there, they wouldn't ask her to pay her way and theirs. That if this was truly about family, it wouldn't come with an invoice. But she looked so proud, like she was doing something meaningful. So I smiled and said, "It'll be beautiful, Grandma," even though everything in me screamed otherwise. The morning of the flight, we all met in the airport parking lot. Dad barked orders again. My sister handed out matching hats that read Maldives Magic 2025. Even the little kids had custom luggage tags. Everything was perfect. Except no one asked if Grandma needed help with her bags. Except no one said, "You okay, Mom?" when she stopped to catch her breath. Except no one saved her a seat in the lounge. When the truth dropped at the check-in counter, that she and I were never booked, they didn't even act shocked. We all voted. "You two stay behind," Dad said, like he was excusing us from jury duty. I thought that would break her. But Grandma just sat down, right there in the terminal lobby, next to a coffee machine that groaned every time someone pressed cappuccino. She folded her hands in her lap, exhaled. "I'm not crying," she said after a moment. "I'm just done giving." I sat beside her, the noise of suitcase wheels and boarding announcements swirling around us. Then, without looking up, she added, "I made one more transfer last week." Quietly, before all this. I turned to her. "What kind of transfer?" She just smiled and tapped her nose again. "The kind that remembers who you are when others forget." And we sat there, two people not welcome on the flight. But maybe, finally, done waiting for an invitation. We didn't say a word on the ride home. The family group chat was blowing up, selfies from the airport lounge, champagne flutes in hand, hashtags like hashtag Maldives Magic 2025 and hashtag family goals. And yet, in the back seat of my dusty old car, Grandma sat quietly, her phone turned off, her purse clutched tightly in her lap like it was the only anchor she had left. By the time we pulled into her driveway, the silence had thickened into something else. Resolve. She turned to me and said, almost too calmly, "I'd like to talk to someone. A professional." I nodded. "Legal or medical?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Legal. And I want you there with me." 3 days later, we sat across from a real estate attorney in a tiny office that smelled like paper and peppermint. She told him everything. How she had taken out $22,000 from her own savings. Not for herself, but for a family vacation where she wasn't even welcome. How she'd been covering other people's bills for years. How her name was still on the house, but she'd been pressured, manipulated, and emotionally steamrolled. The attorney listened, nodded, and then turned to me. "You're the grandson?" "Yes," I said. "Do you have any documentation of what's been happening?" Oh, I did. I had spent the last year saving everything. Every text from Dad that read, "She won't need the car much longer anyway." Every Venmo request from my sister marked Mom's half for Taylor's braces. Every email confirmation of bank transfers made from Grandma's account. I handed over a folder stuffed with statements, screenshots, and even a handwritten list Grandma had made, detailing every birthday gift, loan, and favor she'd provided in the last decade. There was more than enough. "We can transfer the deed," the lawyer said. "She's fully within her rights. But you'll need to be ready for fallout." Grandma's hands were steady. "They already left me behind once," she said. "They can survive the landing." Next came the car. One afternoon, I was helping Grandma organize paperwork in the attic. She handed me a dusty shoebox labeled Auto. Inside were insurance slips, registration forms, and, my heart skipped, the title to Dad's silver Lexus SUV. Registered not to him, but to her. Back in 2021, he had terrible credit after a failed business. So he'd begged Grandma to co-sign, except she hadn't just co-signed. He'd filed everything under her name. I ran a VIN check with my buddy Eric, who works at the DMV. The result came back the same. Owner, E. Thompson. That's Grandma. She didn't say much when I showed her the result. Just poured herself some peppermint tea, sat by the window, and muttered, "Interesting. Guess I still own more than I thought." For 3 weeks, we worked in quiet focus. I came by every day after work. Together we combed through receipts, labeled folders, and took inventory of everything in her garage, including a box of unopened Christmas gifts she had bought for the family but never got the chance to give. We scanned every photo of her at birthday parties, holding out presents. We listed every check she wrote for emergencies. We even dug up old voicemails, like one from my aunt that said, "We really need you to cover the deposit. Dad says you'll understand." By the end, we had a binder. A literal binder of proof, not just of money given, but of a life systematically drained by the people who claimed to love her. And then came the final move. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when we walked into the notary's office. No dramatic music, no speeches, just a grandmother and her grandson, both dressed in clean, quiet dignity. She signed the papers, transferred the house into a living trust, with me as co-trustee, registered the car under a separate title, finalized her will. This time, no room for misinterpretation. She folded her hands when we were done. "I always thought being generous would make them care more," she said. "Turns out, it just made me easier to forget." "Not anymore," I replied. That night, the Maldives crew posted photos from a sunset dinner on a yacht. The caption, "Best Christmas ever. Family is everything." I looked at Grandma, curled up in her armchair with a mug of cocoa and a heating pad on her knees, and thought, no, family is not everything. But the people who stand by you when everyone else votes you off the plane, they are. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for their vacation smiles to fade from Instagram. 3 weeks of filtered sunsets, clinking glasses, and barefoot beach yoga, while Grandma and I drafted documents, scanned receipts, and moved chess pieces no one even saw coming. The day they landed, I was in her kitchen, tightening the loose leg on her dining chair. We heard the engine of my dad's Lexus SUV pull up, loud, proud, sun glinting in the driveway. I glanced at Grandma. She didn't flinch, just sipped her tea and stood up with a grace that didn't ask for attention. They came in like a parade, tanned, laughing, loud. My sister burst through the front door first, dragging her roller bag and still wearing her resort wristband. "Oh, it's so dry here," she moaned. "Grandma, you must visit the Maldives one day. That spa? OMG. Then she turned to me. "So what was it like here without us?" She snorted. "Probably just silence and boiled potatoes." Laughter. My father stepped in last, his sunglasses still perched on his forehead like a crown. He clapped his hands once and declared, "Home sweet home. Now where's the key to the garage? I need to grab my golf clubs." Grandma didn't look at him. She just reached for her shawl, walked slowly across the hallway, and calmly said, "Go look in the garage." He went. Moments later, we heard it. The sound of silence, then a rising panic. The garage door creaked open. Then, "What the? Where's my car?" His voice cracked. He stormed back in. "The garage is empty. The SUV's gone." "What happened?" "Someone steal it." He turned to Grandma, flushed and panting. "Is this a joke? You left the door open while we were gone." She didn't answer. I did. I walked to the kitchen table, picked up a manila folder, and opened it slowly, deliberately, like a courtroom exhibit. Inside was the title transfer. VIN check. Sale confirmation. A certified check made out to Grandma. "The car," I said calmly, "was never yours. You bought it using Grandma's name and credit. It was registered under her. It is now sold. Officially." I let that sink in before adding, "The money is being used to reimburse her for 10 years of unpaid debts, manipulations, and favors disguised as family love." He froze, then snapped, "You've lost your mind. That car was a gift. I paid for it. On her credit." I cut him off. He turned to Mom. She was pale now. My sister dropped her designer tote on the floor. "Wait, what do you mean it's gone? What kind of messed up move is this?" My voice didn't rise, but the words hit like a sledgehammer. "This isn't about payback. It's about setting things right. You used her. Over and over." She stayed silent. I didn't. He lunged toward the folder, but I stepped back. "Don't. You're not getting this." He turned to Grandma. "Mom, tell him to stop. This is going too far. You're letting him attack his own family." She looked at him. Really looked. "No," she said softly. "I'm finally protecting myself." The silence that followed was louder than anything he could have shouted. That night, I opened the family group chat. It had been oddly quiet all day. No "we're home" posts. No Maldives photo dumps. Just a long, scrolling thread of silence. Then, one by one, they began to leave. First my sister, then her husband, then Dad, then Mom. No explanations. No arguments. Just exit notifications. Grandma stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she turned off the phone. "I suppose that's that," she whispered. "Is this what peace feels like?" She doesn't call them anymore. And they don't call her. The house is quieter now, but not empty. There's music in the kitchen again. The smell of fresh bread. Her old photo albums finally pulled off the shelf. She frames one of the pictures from last Christmas, the one where we're both sitting on the airport bench, back straight, holding each other's hands. It's not festive, but it's honest. The SUV? Gone. The house? Protected. The woman they thought they could use forever? She's finally seen. And me? I've stopped trying to fit into a family that only saw value in my silence. A month later, the snow fell so softly it felt like the sky was whispering. The house didn't echo the same way anymore. It had warmth now. The kind you can't fake with scented candles or fake pine garlands. The kind you only earn when a home stops being a place you survive and becomes a place you heal. Grandma stood by the window in her soft flannel robe. Her gray hair was pinned back with a clip I'd found in one of her old jewelry boxes. She held a mug, the one with the sleepy cartoon owl and the words. Some heroes wear slippers. She'd laughed when I gave it to her. Now she carried it around like a medal. After the legal documents were signed, after the car was sold, after the dust had settled from all the drama, she took my hand, steady, wrinkled, familiar, and simply said, "I guess I'll have to start cooking for two again." So I stayed. No more dingy studio apartment for me. No more reheated takeout and overworked silence. I packed my bags, called my job, negotiated a remote role. The room that used to be a storage closet became my office. I bought a real desk, a proper chair, a lamp with yellow light. We fell into a rhythm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every morning, she'd wake to the smell of scrambled eggs. I never got the salt ratio right, so she taught me. Use parsley instead. Every morning, she'd hum a tune I didn't recognize. I asked once what it was, she said. Something I used to play on the violin, back when life still waited for me. I didn't ask again. I just listened harder the next time she hummed. Afternoons, we'd walk to the pharmacy together. Slow steps, thick coats. She'd greet everyone by name. I didn't even know she knew so many people. When you don't leave much, you make the most of who you see. Evenings, I'd read to her. Agatha Christie, Daphne du Maurier. Sometimes she'd fall asleep before I finished a chapter, glasses sliding down her nose. Sometimes I'd keep reading anyway, just for the sound of my voice in a house that used to be too quiet. In the backyard, where Dad's Lexus used to gleam like a prize, we built something better. A bench. Wooden. Simple. We painted it cherry red, the color she always said reminded her of her mother's kitchen. Then we added a brass plaque, one I'd had engraved at a little shop downtown. A seat for those who weren't invited, but stayed anyway. She cried when she read it. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a single tear that she wiped away with the sleeve of her cardigan before sitting down. Christmas came like a whisper. No decorations, no pressure, just two people in knitted sweaters, the radio playing old jazz, and the fire crackling as if it, too, was trying not to disturb the peace. She made hot cocoa from scratch. I added too many marshmallows. We laughed about it for 10 minutes straight. There were no wrapped presents, but there was peace. Real, hard-earned, awkward, imperfect peace. Later that night, my phone buzzed. I ignored it the first time, and the second, but by the third, curiosity won. It was a message from my sister. "You ruined everything. You broke us. This isn't what family does." I stared at the screen. So sterile. So sterile. It stung more than if she'd yelled. There was no Merry Christmas. No how's grandma. Just blame. I opened the family group chat. Hundreds of photos still there. Beach selfies. Champagne toasts. Captions like, "Family first." Always. Not one message to grandma. Not one call. Not even a check-in. The silence of their absence said more than words ever could. I didn't hesitate this time. Delete conversation. Click. Gone. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was the one who had left. They had. Long ago. I walked into the kitchen, poured 2 more cups of cocoa, and joined Grandma outside. She was already sitting on the bench, wrapped in a blanket. The snow had stopped. The sky looked heavy with stars. I handed her the mug and sat beside her. For a long time, we didn't speak. We just watched our breath disappear into the cold. Finally, I took her hand. "Warm. Steady. Mine now." "Grandma," I said softly, "I didn't rescue you. I just gave you the one thing no one else ever thought you needed. A gift you actually deserved." She didn't cry this time. She just leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "You stayed. That's all I ever wanted. They can keep their resorts, their filtered photos, their fake unity. We didn't go to paradise this year. We stayed home. And in staying, we found something greater than any island could offer. We found dignity. We found us. And that was the gift no one expected. I didn't expect this story to turn out like it did. Honestly, I thought I was just going to give Grandma a ride home and maybe take her out for pancakes the next morning. But somewhere between that airport bench and that empty garage, something shifted. And if you're still listening, maybe something shifted in you too. Because this story, it's not just about a car, or a trip, or a bank account. It's about seeing the invisible. It's about what happens when we stop asking, what do they owe us? And start asking, who stood by us, even when no one else did. If you've ever been the forgotten seat at the table, if you've ever watched someone you love give everything and get nothing in return, then you already know silence isn't peace. It's the echo of all the thank yous we never said. So here's mine. Thank you, Grandma, for never making me feel like a backup plan. This time, I chose you first. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Drop a comment. Let us know your city or country. Let's see how far this story reaches. And if someone came to mind while you listened, someone who deserved more than what they got, text them, call them, show up, because maybe they're still waiting on that bench, wondering if anyone remembers. And maybe today, that someone is you. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being the kind of person who stays till the end.